Imagine this. Your organization buys a shiny new HR platform. It looks beautiful. It's slick. It's fast. It has dashboards, reports, workflows, everything you ever dreamed of. And then a month later, all your employee data, salaries, sickness records, disciplinary notes, personal addresses, is leaked online. Not because you made a mistake, not because someone clicked a bad link, but because the application you bought never had proper security requirements defined. That's not a software problem, that's a you problem. And that is what ISO 27001 Annex A 8.26 exists to prevent. This is where you protect your organization before the first line of code is written, or before you sign the contract with a new supplier of software and an application that you're going to bring into your organization. So what does the standard say? Well, the standard states that information security requirements shall be identified, specified, and approved when developing or acquiring applications. Notice a few things in here. First of all, it talks about identify. It talks about identifying security requirements. So what security is needed? It talks about specifying it. So what controls will be implemented? And finally, who approves it? Who signs off on those controls and that those controls are correct and complete? But also note here that it's talking about that process, identifying, specifying, and approving when developing or acquiring applications. So this isn't just about software development lifecycle, which we talked about in the previous control, Annex A 8.25, where we talked about the secure development lifecycle. This is also talking about when you acquire a new system as well. So what do we need to put in place? What is the suggestion here? Well, what I would suggest here is, again, taking a look at Annex A controls under ISO 27002, the guidance. So the guidance, as ever, sits alongside 27001. It talks about what you should look at. Doesn't say you have to do it. It just says these are the kind of things that we would expect you to consider. And I think these are very appropriate things you need to consider. So first of all, define the security requirements early on in the life cycle. So not just when you're developing this, when you're bringing in a new application, what are your security requirements? What are the must-haves in terms of security be for this application? Must it have the ability for multi-factor authentication? Must it have the ability to have different user levels? So you have someone who has manager level or general admin, or, you know, overseer, godlike level of security. What are the different levels of security that you would expect? What about the requirements that the data is held in an encrypted format, that cryptography is applied? Comes back to, again, one of our earlier controls where we talked about the use of cryptography. So where does the data sit? And that really comes on to the next kind of thing that we need to think about, is ensuring that the requirements reflect legal, regulatory, and contractual needs. Is it okay that your data, this HR database that you just subscribe to, this service that you've used, where is it okay if their data is sitting in the EU or outside the EU? Where does the data sit? Where is it going to reside? Does that meet your requirements from a GDPR perspective, for instance, the General Data Protection Regulation? You need to consider things like data protection, authentication, logging, availability, and obviously, encryption as well, as I've just mentioned. So you need to think about those requirements. What are your requirements? And I cannot emphasize this enough. This is about you. What are your requirements? When you're going and selecting this software application off the shelf, you need to make sure that you're very clear about not just the functionality that you need from this system and this service, but also the security requirements. Go and evaluate the supplier and their security, especially for things like cloud services. We talked about cloud services previously, and we're going to talk about it again throughout the remainder of these controls. But think about what that supplier is doing for you. Where is that data? How secure is it? What are your requirements? And then document those requirements and obtain formal approval from perhaps your management review team. Maybe it's from the CTO, who's going to own the risks associated to that particular application and service. If it's a HR service, then get formal approval from your head of HR that says, we've done a security review. Here are the risks. Here are our concerns, if you have any, and get them to formally approve that they still want to move ahead with that particular supplier. If they do, you've done your job, and all you can do now is monitor and manage that particular supplier and that service, or the software that you've had developed internally. Just whichever approach you're going to take, whether it be an application you're bringing in, or whether it be something that you're developing, just remember to integrate the requirements into the life cycle, whether that's the software development life cycle or the project life cycle. Just don't bolt them on at the end. Make sure it's an integrated part of the whole process, and that it starts at the outset, there's something in the middle, and there's something at the end that has some formal sign-off. Just remember that the security requirements must come before features, before design, before development, before procurement, or they certainly should. Obviously, the preference is that you are considering them all together. So again, you should be, as part of your role as the security lead, you should be involved in any decisions where new applications and services are being considered and being brought into the organization. So if someone says in passing, oh yeah, we're going to be changing our finance systems, we're going for a new cloud provider over here, you should be in those meetings where those conversations are happening. And if you're not, then the rules and the procedures around that software development life cycle, or the software procurement life cycle, if you're not in those rooms, that you have a very clear process that people must go through, so that they are asking the questions when you're not in the same room. So why is this required? Well, every application touches data. Every application connects to your environment. Every application essentially introduces risk. If you don't define security requirements early on, you leave the door wide open to misconfiguration, data leakages, poor access controls, weak encryption, unknown suppliers, high remediation costs, reputational damage. And that new HR system, that new CRM, that new mobile app, they all carry risk unless you define how you must protect your organization. So let's try and bring this to life. And I keep talking about the HR system because that is a very real issue that we saw recently, where a business that bought a beautiful HR platform, but no one checked it. No one did the security reviews on it. They didn't understand where the data was being stored, how access was being controlled, how encryption was being used, how backups were being handled. The results, a vulnerability exposed all the employee data. And because no one identified or approved the security requirements beforehand, they just didn't see it coming. The result was a very costly remediation plan and implementation, and some very serious soul-searching questions that had to be asked of the project team that put this in place. Or how about the company that builds a training app and decides to store names, health information, and preferences, but because security wasn't included in the requirements, Data wasn't encrypted, data wasn't masked, data wasn't protected, and one vulnerability later, complete data exposure. So what is the auditor going to be looking for with this particular control? Well, the auditor wants to see that you've thought about how you build your apps, of course, and software development lifecycle, which we spoke about on the previous control. But the auditor is also going to want to see that you have a procurement process as well. How do you select new providers and new applications that you're bringing into your organization? Are people, as in your people, just simply signing up to a new application, a new service, a cloud-based service? Do you have shadow IT in your organization? The auditor is going to want to see that you have good controls around that. So the auditor will undoubtedly want to see, yeah, a documented software, secure software development lifecycle, but they're also going to want to see a procurement process. So how do you select new suppliers of services? Who's authorized to do such a thing? They're going to want to see that you've thought about cloud security as well, cloud services. So have some evidence that you've reviewed your cloud service provider, that you've evaluated them not based on just on your technical capabilities, just because you prefer Amazon Web Services because your IT provider says that's the one that they can support, but that you've considered whether Amazon Web Services is indeed the best cloud provider for you, that it is the most secure provider for you. Does it operate in the jurisdictions that you're comfortable with? Do you have a license for the correct kind of cloud service? The auditor is going to want to see that you've thought about all of those things. Any issues, any risks and problems obviously will go on your risk register. So they're going to want to see that you've got those identified on there as well, and that you've identified any risks and issues identified are discussed within management review meetings. They're going to want to see that you've got things on your legal register when it comes to app procurement and development, because again, like many of the other controls here, this might be cross-jurisdictional, so there may be legal, contractual, regulatory kind of constraints that you need to be aware of that you're tracking through your legal register. Just remember that auditors are asking, did you think about security before you built or bought this system? And if you did, show me evidence that you have. And if the answer is no, it's a non-conformity that's just waiting to happen. So you need to make sure you've got a good, compelling story around this particular control. So what do you need to do? What are the practical steps? Well, with these controls, it's important, first of all, to start with your development team. But you also need to understand how applications are being used and selected. So you need to speak to the business. Perhaps this is a conversation for your management review meeting. Hopefully you've got different representatives from across the business on your management review. But you need to understand how applications are chosen or developed. So speak to the development teams, speak to your procurement teams, project managers, solution architects, the operations. Ask, when do we consider security? Is it up front? Do we do it at the end? Not at all. Ask them the questions. So it depends upon your organizations, the shape and size of your organization, but you may find that you've got shadow IT services out there where different departments can just simply go and subscribe to a service, that a cloud-based service and system that they want to use, requiring no installation from your IT teams or even interactions with your IT team. Does HR have a HR database that you're unaware of? Does the sales and marketing team use a system that you're unaware of? You need to speak to the business about this as well as your IT team. But what you're looking to do is build a simple, clear, repeatable process for onboarding of application services or building of application services. And what you need to do is fundamentally include 3 steps. First of all, identification. What data will be stored? What laws apply? GDPR, for instance, UK Data Protection Act, for instance. Are there any industry specific laws or regulations you need to think about? What threats apply? What controls are required? So you need to identify those first and foremost. But I think of all of the things you need to identify, the first and probably most important is what data will be stored or will be shared with this particular application. Then you need to specify what kind of controls need to be put in place. This might include multi-factor authentication. It might include password complexity rules, requiring encryption at rest and in transit, data segregation, logging and monitoring, and perhaps even backup and recovery requirements as well. And finally, approval. So once you've identified it, once you've specified what security controls in place, you need to have someone who's going to approve this. Now, that might be someone who's going to approve this. Could be the head of the organization, it could be the head of the department, but it's not the developer. It's someone within the organization who's going to own and take accountability of this particular applications. They must confirm requirements are being met, security testing is being passed, controls are being implemented, and that risk is acceptable. Now, this could be your information security manager, it could be the system owner, it could even be the management review team. So as a team, collectively, you take ownership and accountability. Might even be a technical reviewer, but it certainly is not the developer who's designed this particular system. You want someone who's one step removed to do that approval process. Finally, I'm just going to simply say on this, you need to embed security by design and privacy by design. These are fundamental basis for secure software development lifecycle. We've spoken about them on a previous video, but keep in mind this idea that it's security by design and privacy by design. And dare I say it, it's security by design and default. So you are requiring security to be in place first, and then allow people to either change their security requirements based upon certain rules and such, which again is beyond the scope of this particular video. But always keep in mind this idea of security by design and default, privacy by design and default. Make security requirements the first step in any project, not an afterthought. Because great software doesn't start with code. Great software starts with requirements, because it's not great software if it doesn't meet your requirements. It needs to also meet security requirements, because if you don't define how an application must protect you, it will expose you. You can't secure what you haven't specified. You can't specify what you haven't identified, and you definitely shouldn't approve what you haven't assessed. Build securely, buy securely, and protect your business from the start. I hope that's been helpful. There's a lot to unpack in there, but again, start simply and make sure that you take those steps in an appropriate manner, but speak to your business about the different systems that they are bringing in and how they're being developed and designed into your organization. Don't retrofit security. Can't say it enough. We've seen it too often. We know it doesn't work. Think security from the outset and you'll never go far wrong. I hope that's been helpful. I'm Gary from Consultants Like Us, where implementing 27001 is all about compliance without complexity for us. It's about making sure that it works for you, not against you. I hope that's been helpful and you like the video. If you do, give it a like, give it a share. I would really appreciate that. I'd love to hear your comments and your thoughts around this particular control. What's been done well? What have you seen done badly? And don't forget to hit the bell to subscribe to the videos as well. But thank you very much for watching as ever, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video where we will continue the conversation around secure software development lifecycle and the principles therein. Until next time, stay well, stay safe, and stay connected. Thank you. Bye-bye.